Alright, here we go. Yesterday, Zach and I spooked all those bucks. Only a couple 100 yards from this parking lot here. So we got up pretty early. There's a pretty heavy fog, and it's super calm, which is what we needed to get in this bottom, because yesterday the wind was just swirling all the way around. But today it's pretty calm coming from the south a little bit. And as the morning clears up, our thermals should just rise. It's supposed to be sunny today for the first time in, 3 or 4 days, I think. So we got up plenty early, and we're gonna use the headlamps and just pretty much try to get in there, either with them by taking our time in the dark or before them. So I guess the plan is we're gonna go sit right where we saw these deer. And if we don't see anything, we just are gonna figure that they move further back. Well, right here is the running track from where that buck came down the hill yesterday, we think. He kind of shot back that way. It's been daylight for about a half hour here, probably. And after we kind of got through the thicker stuff in the dark this morning, we got on this deer trail and have just been sneaking along as quiet as we can. We take a couple of steps and then we'll stop and listen for a long time. And the hope is to do something similar to what Hayden did yesterday, is just move slow enough and listen and walk up on a deer that's on their feet in this bedding area yet. There's tons of tracks in here. Everything's browsed down. You could tell the deer could stand up in here, and from that access path you'd never see them. So Zach and I have kind of been talking. We're not sure if the deer are bedded down with it being this calm and they're going to wait for this wind to pick up a little bit before they start moving around. Or it's 38 degrees this morning, right? And it's by far the coldest morning since the season's been open. So they could potentially be out further away from the bedding area feeding yet and coming back later in the morning. Alright, well that's it for the morning hunt. Pretty uneventful. Sorry guys. We felt good going into it, but we knew there was definitely a possibility that we weren't going to see any deer, and that the fashion that we bumped that buck in yesterday, that he probably wouldn't be back today. I guess the hope was that the other bucks that didn't have a clue that we were there would come back and be in the bedding area today, but that wasn't the case. Conditions are a little bit different, and that could have something to do with it as well. But we're definitely not writing that spot off completely still. There's definitely a chance in the next couple days that at least one of those bucks will be back in there. So we're definitely going to keep that spot in mind. But I think the plan actually is for tonight, get up on top of this ridge. The forecasted wind for today is out of the south. We're anticipating the deer to be bedded on this side of the ridge. There's a pretty big field up there, and we're going to go take a look at that right now. I'd like to talk to him. I don't want to just put $5 in a box and walk back there and all of a sudden buddy's coming up on you like, hey, get out. We stopped here the other day when we were just going to ask him. Then we saw the simo and we were like, well, looks like we can get back there. Just got to throw the guy $5. But
all right, so yesterday we had Joe go in and hit the islands we had scouted out, and he saw one buck, and there's better sign in there, and we're thinking we got to get remote, so we're gonna go and scoot over to the next island over together. We got a good wind for us both to get in there. The wind's south today. Yesterday was north, so we only put one person in there, and we're gonna scoot along and see, what the sign looks like and just set up. I'm pretty confident about tonight. I think we're getting into some bucks. Mm-hmm. The sign looks better and better the further back we get, coming from the direction of the islands with some big rubs real high up. Mm-hmm. And they're fresh. We got bucks lurking back there. It's just a matter of getting on them. And I think the key is going to be those isolated patches of acorns out there in those islands. It's just a matter of which one they're hitting and that we get on the right one.
Yeah, they're dropping good, because we got into a lot of acorns in other places where they're all cleaned up, but they're good out here. So.
And you can see there's good bedding all the way around those islands.
Mm-hmm. You
can see it on the mapping when you zoom in.
Yep.
You can see the trails out there, and I'm pretty confident we should get onto something.
Yeah.
A bigger track over here that are fresh from yesterday. Pretty good rubs. And if you look back there, you see there's a rub line where Joe saw the buck was straight up this rub line this way, but I don't think that's the buck that's doing this, because that's a pretty good rub. There are fresh tracks, not a lot of them, and it looks like the best sign is about a week old, and it might be best to push in, but I think I want to give this a sit before we push in. We got tomorrow yet and the next day. This is a pretty good rub line. It looks like there's a pretty good movement through here. We got bedding right over here and bedding right over here that we know of. So we'll give this a shot and see what happens. And if we don't get one, maybe we get our eyes on something. So we're on this island. It branches out into some fingers. The wind's blowing like this. There's good bedding cover down there, but we know there's bedding cover up here too. And we got to this point, we got these big rubs here and a couple fresh tracks. I feel like we need to go further. I didn't want to blow it so fast. I'm gonna stop here and then move in from here. Joe circled way around downwind to a little island down here, back in here, which is straight downwind of us. And he said that while we're setting up, a basket 8-pointer ran past him. Now, basket 8-pointer didn't do these rubs, but hopefully the big one isn't bedding down there. We're hoping he's bedding over here. I did notice when we got up here, we couldn't see it from ground level, but there's a patch of grass over here that's all just tore up. And you see all the grass has been killed by something, and there's a little hole going back into the thick brush behind it, and I can just faintly see a small rub on that tree. So they might be bedding in there too. The buck that Joe saw yesterday was over here, and there's some does over there, and they came right through here someplace. So hopefully we can either get an arrow in one or at least get an eyeball on one and make a move from there, and if not, further in tomorrow. But we're in really deep, so we'll see.
All right, so after last night, I mean, you know, Aaron and I talked about it. It seemed like a pretty good setup. We saw all the fresh sign we were looking for. We saw deer. I think if we just kind of put together a bunch of those types of sits where we have pretty much everything going for us, we think, you know, it's just a matter of time before it's going to work out. So we have a different wind direction today, so we're not going back to the same spot. Picked out a different spot based on the south wind that we got today. The other one was overlooking basically a bunch of potential people pressure and access spots and that type of thing. But the spot that I'm going into today is a little bit different. It's more secluded, it's a little bit further back, and it overlooks kind of this secluded little valley. But the big thing is that with a south wind, we're able to kind of get in there and get set up with essentially just off wind. So it should be, again, kind of like last night, about a 2-mile access, but we'll just go in there, look for hot sign, and then set up exactly where we think we need to be. So assuming these lines are accurate on these crop fields, what may be easiest for us to do is just kind of loop around and get through here so we can get on that center line between the crops, and then we'll have a nice walking lane to get where we're going. We finally saw a pair of boot tracks, but overall not too concerned about it yet, just because there's so much land yet that this can lead to, that the odds that we're going to bump into a place that he's already hunted so far this season is still pretty low. So overall, considering the amount of land that we got up here, I'd say this stuff is still very light pressure as far as deer hunting is concerned. You can see the tread from that hunter's boot track right here, and the deer track that's on top of it. So I don't know if the hunters in here basically, well, it had been yesterday. All this stuff had to have been made yesterday with the rain. Either this guy was here in the afternoon and the deer came out after dark, or sometime earlier in the day, but it gives you at least somewhat of confidence that there's still a lot of deer obviously using this area. And we're seeing some pretty big size tracks. I mean, back home I've been seeing probably as many what I would consider maybe mature buck tracks as I have already here in the first couple days. So based on the tracks we've been seeing, we basically made a plan to go one of two ways. We said we'll go one way today, maybe one way tomorrow. Well, we started going the one way, and that the one pair of boot tracks that we've seen, we could see the guy sitting up on the edge of an alfalfa field that's just on public. And we were planning on going past him to hunt the bedding for the south winds. But option 2 was to check out this stuff. There's a lot of tracks going into here. There's a bunch of little points that all stick together, but it's so dense. And even on the edge of this field, the foliage and the underbrush is so thick that there's just really no good way to get in there undetected. So what we might do tonight is just walk down the edge of this soybean field and see if there's a good place to hop in there and get past that initial layer of brush. If not, we might just hunt the field edge and use it as like a semi-observation sit where we could have something walk by, or if not, we might see something enter the field and then be able to make a game plan for tomorrow.
So the day that we arrived here, Logan and I had a couple hours to drive around before everybody got into camp. It's something I've always done, whether I'm hunting a piece of private or public land. If access is better from someone else's property, I've always at least just tried to ask permission to get into a spot, and we were doing that a little bit to try to get back into the public here. This was one of the first houses we pulled up to, and we saw the sign out there, and that's something I've never seen before, is someone just having a thing outside where you pay them money to go through their property to get to public. We knew the answer would be yes. All we had to do was pay the $5. So here we are. We're going to walk through this piece of private. The fields start out as private, and then they go to public as you walk further back. And what Zach and I are going to do, the wind is coming this way today, and we're going to be on the upwind side of the field and try to walk all the way down the finger on the opposite side of the ridge from where they're bedded, and just kind of still hunt our way up from the back, kind of reading sign. If we find something real good, we'll probably set up on it for the afternoon, and we'll just keep walking, I guess, till we find something that we're pretty confident in as a setup.
She definitely can't smell us. There. Yeah, I'm glad she didn't go that way too. Smoked one. Just saw a guy up here, he smoked a deer. Definitely on public land, so yeah. Sleepy. There's a pine tree coming up in there. You see awesome. Yeah.
That was cool, huh? She came out awfully early. She just ate acorns in one spot and then went back right in where she came from. Hopefully they keep coming. She actually saw my camera. That's what she was looking at. Yeah.
Looked like she was looking at that milkweed coming at her.
Yeah. Yeah. She was watching it.
We got into this area, we were thinking about just setting up on the end of the soybeans as kind of a combo observation / hunt sit. But there's really no trees that you can climb up and to really observe that field well. So we ended up finding a spot right on the edge where there's a ton of tracks, there's a lot of stuff going in and out, there's fresh rubs.
even the start of a scrape right on this field edge. And we really don't think these deer are bedded too far in. Like out probably less than 100 yards is what we're expecting, just based on how thick it is right here. So we're set up in a spot where we can see potentially some deer filtering out to this low spot in the field. And we could also potentially shoot to the field edge in a couple spots. So that's the plan for tonight. The wind is a little dicey, but it's about the best that we can do right now. Alright, well, it's the evening of Saturday, September 22nd. Just got set up in the stand here. It's about 5:20. I have about 2 hours till dark. I'm in a spot where Zach was the night before I got here. He didn't actually hunt the spot. I just did some observing and had seen a bunch of deer. So I'm coming in tonight hoping to at least get eyes on a nice buck. Alright, well, I've currently got a small buck and a decent 8-pointer out in the field about 200 yards away from me. That buck's been out there feeding for about, I don't know, probably half an hour at least. He doesn't appear to be coming my way, but I'd say so far the goal has been achieved of getting eyes on a decent buck. Jake keeps saying it's got 4 points he's shooting, so I know it's a buck Jake would be after. I'll see what those guys saw when I get back to camp, and otherwise we'll make a game plan for him tomorrow. Didn't see any deer come through tonight. The spot wasn't as ideal as we kind of hoped it would be, based on the map. It would have been interesting to see if we would have been able to get to that first spot we wanted to go to on the other side of the alfalfa field. But now we at least have one area that we can kind of cross off, and now we can move on to the next one.
I didn't see anything other than that buck that busted out.
Really?
Yeah.
Raccoon came through,
Okay.
and then about a half an hour before dark, a buck came walking up the channel. Came in and looked to be about an 8-pointer, about 80 class or so.
Okay.
It got to about 45 yards.
Okay.
It stopped under an oak tree and started eating acorns. It stayed right there till dark.
Really?
And,
Yeah. I think I made a mistake sitting there because your scent was going right that way. And I
Right.
think that's what bugged that one out.
Yeah.
Right in the beginning.
Right. That was all you saw, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty uneventful. I didn't hear anything moving, nothing.
You have oaks?
Yeah, oaks dropping.
Well, now we can walk for about 16 hours and
For me,
drive for about 20 hours.
For me, the worst of it's done.
I don't know, walking in a wet boot with no sock isn't good. Hey Joe, why don't you tell the camera why you got no sock?
Why do I have no sock?
Yeah, why you have no sock?
I'm trying to think here.
Did you ever see a guy with rubber boots and no socks? Joe thinks socks are toilet paper.
You gotta do what you gotta do. When you're three miles back, what do you think?
You know what I think?
What do you think?
I think you're getting acorns, you're gonna be in them.
See,
So I think that if you went up that point from the road and walked it till you hit sign on the edge, I
Yeah.
think you're gonna get into deer.
We'll have to look
We'll
at the
go back and we'll talk
We'll look
about
at the
it.
wind. Yeah, we got 3 hours to talk.
Yeah. 3 hours.
Why are we talking
That
now?
is true.
We could hear some more legendary Dan Infault stories.
Yeah.
Stories from the shop.